And going back to that, selling the business and the real estate,
Yeah.
uh, it is true to say that it would be two separate escrows and that you
Yes.
want the deal to close concurrently. You do not want one to close without the other. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay.
Typically.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically. And
Mhm.
also, again, it depends on what it is. So if you have the wholesale business and for whatever reason, the buyer says, I want to buy the business and I'd like an option to buy the real estate. I'd like a long-term lease. I want a 5-year lease with a 5-year option to satisfy an SBA loan or whatever. You got to have that 10 years. And I want an option to purchase because my intent is to purchase the real estate in year 3, but I want 2 years of the business of that cash flow and all that to get ramped up before I make that purchase of the real estate. So there are different ways that things can be structured, and you can actually have you can have your purchase agreement for the business, assuming the seller is agreeable to it, your 5-year lease with a 5-year option to extend, and then an option to purchase in that first 3 years, which can be exercised by the buyer anytime within that first 3 years, or the option expires, and then the seller at that point can turn around and sell the business or the building rather. Or you could also make it like uh, if the seller's really intent on selling the building, saying, no, I want to sell the building, so you can still put in a 5+5. And if the buyer's saying, well, I'm not really ready, but if he finds another buyer, then I'll consider it and give him a first right of refusal or something. So different ways to structure that. Um,
Mm.
and it just has to be agreeable to the parties. And then you also have to look at the values of each of those and how you would finance because you got to remember SBA 7A acquisition loans have a $5 million max. You can have a 504 loan that also has a 5 million, I think 5 or 5.5 max. Um, and then if you are selling both the business and the real estate simultaneously, then you run into situations where if they request their loan on the real estate first, then anything, let's say that the SBA is going to guarantee, whatever percentage, $2 million on that loan for the real estate. If that gets applied for first, then that $2 million goes against your 7A max of 5 million and drops that down to only 3 million available for your business. So if the businesses and if the business and real estate both fall, under that 5 million max combined, and you're not gonna have to worry about it, then great. But if you're gonna be above that, then you need to talk to a lender who knows how to do that because there is a way to do it where they can get the 7A put in and approved first and then put the 504 in, and that way you get your 5 million on your 7A and then up to another 5 on your 504 under a green program or something else. So yeah.
That's really cool. Listen, I'm the ultimate optimist. I'm looking at this deal being seller carryback, seller will accommodate a tenant instead of like the full buyout. I'm happy to go either way. I mean, the seller already said, I want to sell both the business and the real estate. So the
Yeah.
next conversation is going to be, well, how about seller financing? And if you can't find a buyer for the real estate, if the incoming buyer for the business doesn't want to buy the real estate, will you consider maybe, just renting it out for a period of time? So I just want to be the ultimate optimist where I can ask her for these things and get that approval from her. So that way I could have, additional options working with buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. And let her know that there's a good possibility that you're going to find the perfect buyer for the business and they're not going to want the real estate. They just don't. A lot of
Oh,
buyers
that's
don't want to
true.
own real estate. And so
That's true.
I try to have that conversation up front with the sellers and just say, hey, you need to understand this may happen. We're going to package it assuming the seller wants a package deal, which some do, some don't
Mhm.
care. But if the seller wants a package deal, you say, okay, we'll market it as a package deal with business, real estate, we'll market it that way. That is what you want. Understand, we may come up with the perfect buyer though, that is just not interested in buying the real estate, but they will do a long-term lease. So is that something that you're open to? And then you keep having that conversation all the time, because we know the businesses don't sell overnight, right? So we're marketing the business, and every time you get a buyer that says, no, I don't want the real estate, you go back to the seller. Oh yeah, I had this buyer. Yeah, not interested in the real estate. So you keep educating the seller on the different buyers that you're talking to, what they want, what they don't want. Yeah, some of them, oh, I want the real estate, but not for 3 years, or I want the real estate, but not concurrent, and you just keep the options open, because the seller, after hearing this, it's one thing hearing it from you, but it's another thing when you start getting these emails from buyers and you're sending the seller some of this information, saying, hey, I just got this response and here's what they're saying. Hey, I just got, and you're conveying information, and now it's not just coming from you.
Yep.
So the
Great
sellers tend to
feedback.
get a little more flexible as the more they get educated.
Great feedback. Thank you, Tanya.
Yeah.